Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
I think a lot of people might have been inclined to wait and see.
A look at vaccinations among BC kids and why the numbers are so low. Also,
I really felt like my head was going to explode.
Not all Omicron symptoms are mild, and that's bringing a warning from some British Columbians experiencing a different side of the virus. And
we don't want to go through another flood ever again. This has been hell.
Anxiety builds as Abbotsford flood victims watch with hope they're spared this time around.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Nearly half of BC's 350,000 5 to 11-year-olds haven't yet been registered for a COVID-19 vaccine. When the vaccinations were first available in November, many families hurried to get children immunized. Since then, the rate of pediatric COVID shots has slowed. As Balpuri reports, medical professionals say it's tough tackling parental concerns about children and virus protection.
A return to in-person classes means a close eye on absenteeism and a close eye on vaccination rates among grade school children.
We were pretty confident to have the kids vaccinated.
Austin Hill and his wife were quick to get their 8 and 10-year-olds the pediatric COVID vaccine.
For us, it was important to consider what the risk of contraction of the disease was and what that carries.
For others, it's not so clear, which has doctors fielding daily calls from hesitant parents.
The questions usually are, is it safe? And under that umbrella falls, is it safe in terms of their future fertility is one of them. Does it affect their DNA? What's the data on it? What are the side effects?
Data from the U.S. Center for Disease Control shows in a 6-week period, 8.6 million doses of the vaccine were given to American children aged 5 to 11. Of just over 4,200 reported adverse impacts, 100 involved serious symptoms like chest pain. 97% were not serious. Injection site pain, fatigue, and headache were the most frequently reported reactions, no different from other vaccines routinely given to children.
I think a lot of people might have been inclined to wait and see how the program goes before they make decisions for their children. We're not seeing anything concerning at all in terms of side effect profile or adverse events.
The pediatric vaccine has been available in BC since late November. Since then, across BC health authorities, in Vancouver Coastal, 58% of 5 to 11-year-olds have received a first dose. Vancouver Island reports 53%, Fraser Health 40%, Interior Health 34%, and Northern Health 26%.
And a lot of people feel like, oh, well, it's just, mild, nothing's going to happen to the kids. But we don't know what long-term COVID effects can be in children and who's going to get them.
Doctors still maintain that children are less likely to get sick, but Omicron infections aren't slowing down. And that, they say, means the number of children protected against the virus needs to be higher sooner. Balpuri, CBC News, Vancouver.
The number of COVID-19 hospitalizations in BC has now reached 500. At least 31 more people were admitted to hospital. Patients in ICU have also gone above 100 for the first time since November 30th. About half of those patients are not vaccinated. 49 healthcare facilities in BC are now enduring outbreaks, with 4 declared today in hospitals. 6 more people have died from the virus. Well, as high cases of COVID-19 continue to be reported in BC, it appears few places are being spared. Daycares and preschools welcoming unvaccinated children into their care are sometimes forced to close when there's an exposure.
One of our children got COVID on Wednesday evening, and then my staff member got COVID too. So it left me scrambling a bit.
Numbers have gone up. It's made everyone nervous. We've decided we fully mask at daycare, including the children now, which they say children under 5 don't have to, but children under 5 lick each other. Who's kidding who?
This Victoria daycare says they're doing what they can to keep everyone safe, rotating toys and constantly cleaning. The owner says she's looking for more guidance from the government on how to handle exposures. And the two biggest universities in BC have also taken extra precautionary measures in response to Omicron by further delaying the full return to in-person classes. The majority of courses at UBC will continue to be online for almost another month, with remote learning now extended until February 7th. The university says it is also assessing the impact of Omicron on its employees and the demands for the campus's testing capacity. SFU's return to in-person classes is sooner, now slated for January 24th. No word yet on whether other post-secondary institutions will follow suit. Meanwhile, all staff in the Delta School District, including teachers, will now have to disclose their vaccination status or risk going on unpaid leave. The district says the board approved a proof of vaccination policy yesterday. Staff will have a minimum of 6 weeks to share their status. Those who are unvaccinated or won't disclose by the deadline will have to get regular rapid tests or take leave without pay. The proof of vaccine requirement will not apply to students. Delta says it is the first school in the district in BC to implement a vaccine requirement for employees. The head of the BC Teachers Federation calls it good news. Well, Life Labs has temporarily closed a number of locations in this province and reducing the hours of operation for others. The province's largest provider of medical lab services says it's all because of staffing shortages amid surging cases of Omicron. 11 Life Labs locations are now closed, 8 in the Lower Mainland, 2 in Victoria, and 1 in Kamloops. Another 3 locations in the Lower Mainland and 2 in Victoria have announced reduced hours of operation. The sites could stay closed even longer if the situation worsens. Well, the Omicron variant is so transmissible, BC health officials have said everyone in the province is likely to have been exposed at some point. It's hoped the milder variant could make COVID-19 an endemic, but as the CBC's Michelle Gassoub reports, not everyone getting sick is finding their illness to be as mild as they expected, and they're warning others to stay vigilant.
It's been 12 days now, and I'm still not doing well. I don't know. This thing sucks.
Marie Strom is 41 and double vaccinated. She didn't think her COVID symptoms would leave her drained of energy for nearly 2 weeks.
Provincial regulations say you can go back after 5 days, but on day 5, I was still unable to really move very much. So obviously going back to work was not a thing I could do.
Up in Prince George, Darren Rigo is still recovering after a miserable 14 days.
Really intense sinus headaches and really bad sinus pressure to the point where I really felt like my head was going to explode. And I was tired and just my brain felt like sludge. The duration and just kind of the lasting effect too, I would be hard pressed to call this a mild sickness.
The province says the Omicron variant, now dominant in BC, is so transmissible it's almost impossible to dodge it forever, but that with population-level immunity getting a boost from the milder variant, the pandemic could end sooner.
When people are starting to use the word endemic to describe what Omicron might become, it's highlighting that this is a virus that is highly transmissible, potentially beyond containment.
Hoffman warns the path to COVID-19 being endemic is paved by overwhelmed hospitals, and uncontrolled spread can lead to new variants.
I do have anxiety about this idea of everyone kind of getting it over the next month or so. And I do think we're going to feel some effects of that decision.
A lot of people are going to be surprised by it, like I was. Surprised by how sick they are and surprised about how they can't move and they can't do anything and they can't take care of their children.
While fully vaccinated individuals are unlikely to land in hospital, COVID-19 can still disrupt your life for weeks. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
Businesses struggling to pay the bills under the latest round of COVID closures can now get more help from the provincial government.
And we're here today to say that we have your back. It's why we have fast-tracked a program designed to help those businesses directly impacted by the recent health order closures.
Starting today, the province is taking applications for COVID-19 closure relief grants. The plan is to give a hand up to businesses ordered closed, like gyms, fitness centers, nightclubs, and bars. Businesses ordered closed late last month can apply for grants of between $1,000 and $10,000. Funds from the program are expected to support more than 3,000 businesses. Rainfall warnings are in effect as an atmospheric river event makes its way through BC's south coast and Vancouver Island. High stream flows have fueled anxiety for people previously hit by floods. But as John Hernandez reports, streams aren't expected to breach their banks this time around.
You could call it deja vu in Abbotsford. Homeowners loading up with sandbags amid back-to-back days of heavy rain. The downpour more than enough to bring back some tough memories.
When there's snow like this with heavy rain, there is always anxiety because we had a past history that we thought had been fixed. So we are living behind closed doors, so to speak.
Corrine Carson's home in Abbotsford's Clayburn Village is among those that flooded in November, with waters destroying her main floor. She says she's waiting and hoping her neighborhood will escape this latest atmospheric river unscathed.
We're cautious. We don't want to go through another flood ever, ever, ever again. This has been hell.
High stream flow advisories are in effect across BC's south coast and Vancouver Island. The city of Abbotsford says the Clayburn Creek is of particular concern due to high levels of sediment that could lead it to breach its banks once again. But for now, conditions are stable. And while there have been some reports of localized flooding in the city, dike repairs have been holding up. And concerns about overflow into low-lying areas like the Sumas Prairie have dropped.
This event is a lot different than what we saw in mid-November.
Environment Canada says conditions at higher elevations are much better than they were last year, with snowpacks holding their own against the rain. And the precipitation is expected to lighten tonight and into tomorrow.
This one, not packing quite as much moisture, not as much rainfall throughout the region, and also not seeing nearly as much high elevation snow melt now that that snowpack is mature and able to absorb the rain up in the mountains.
Welcome news for people at the bottom of those hills who are still waist deep in the destruction caused by historic floods just a couple of months ago. John Hernandez, CBC News, Abbotsford.
And Johanna Wagstaffe is here now. And Joe, no hood tonight. The rain seems to have stopped.
It's true. Just as John said, rain has eased across Metro Vancouver and the Fraser Valley. And in fact, Anita, rainfall warnings have ended for most of the south coast, still in place on the west side of Vancouver Island, though. And we're not quite done with the rain, and we're certainly not done with the melt, but the heavy rainfall has moved on. Let me show you the other parts of the story, starting you off with the current temperatures, because those will remain high overnight tonight and through the next couple of days. 11 right now at YVR, above the freezing mark through Abbotsford and Hope. And we still have a snowpack to melt. Even here in North Vancouver, we have icy streets and sidewalks. There is still significant icy snowpack. Same story out towards the valley and then up towards Squamish and Pemberton. So it has not all melted, although we have seen a lot of overland, urban and agriculture flooding, as we've heard, though nowhere near the November event. But still seeing the impacts of this rain that does have one more shot in it. You're looking at the center of that low pressure system sitting off the coast of Vancouver Island. The warm front was the culprit for the past 36 hours of rain. We're in that warm pocket right now, so to speak. The cold front will sweep through early tomorrow morning. You can see on the radar right now clear, but we'll get one more hit of showers overnight as I just take you through that timing. Generally looking at some light rain around midnight that might last to about 7, 8 a.m. And then that sunshine clearing up in the models. I'll take you through a much improved forecast, Anita, and talk more about those temperatures coming up.
That's great. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
The weather update is brought to you by Sophia Financial Group of Raymond James Limited. Register now for our free Cash Flow Connection series at sophiaevents.ca.
Beyond COVID, 2021 had paramedics and first responders busy with the toxic drug crisis, seeing the highest number of overdose calls ever recorded. Last year, emergency call takers and paramedics responded to more than 3,500 calls, up 31% from 2020. Surrey saw a dramatic increase, spiking nearly 50% from the year before. Every health region in the province saw an increase in overdose calls, but Northern Health saw the least increase of only 16% over 2020. Meanwhile, the Lower Mainland continues to have the highest numbers of calls. That includes about 50% of the province's population. Vancouver, Surrey, and Victoria remain the top communities for calls. A 4-month investigation has led to charges against a man who allegedly defaced the Komogata Maru Memorial in Cole Harbour. The memorial was defaced in August. It includes the names of nearly 400 people who sailed to Vancouver from India aboard the steamship in 1914. They were denied entry because of racist policies. Vancouver police say although the vandalism at the memorial was not reported to them, a team of investigators were able to gather evidence from the scene and identify the suspect.
We know that this memorial means a lot to a lot of people in the community, and the fact that it was vandalized and defaced certainly affected a lot of people. There was a very emotional response, and rightly so, from a number of people when they saw what had happened to that memorial.
39-year-old Junior Karnarwin is charged with 1 count of mischief. He remains at large, and a warrant has been issued for his arrest. Well, this year, the province will be proclaiming January 14th as Black Excellence Day. It's an anti-racism movement that will be recognized in schools across BC. And as Janella Hamilton reports, the new initiative aims to spark a much wider conversation about anti-racism and unity among ethnic groups.
Growing up in Victoria, Kamika Williams says she didn't learn a lot about Black history in school.
The curriculum is very white-focused, Eurocentric.
Hoping to change that, the Ninandotu Society, which William co-founded, created a movement called Black Excellence Day. It's designed to highlight the past and present struggles of Black and racialized Canadians. It will be recognized across 20 school districts in BC.
Days like this will encourage educators and to look for more ways to bring Black history and contribution into the classroom.
In conjunction with Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, Black Excellence Day will be on January 15th. If the day falls on a weekend, as it does this year, it will take place on the Friday before. This year, it will be marked online with more than 6,000 people taking part. One of those students is Burnaby's Emmanuel Casa.
Black excellence is a mindset and a series of actions that celebrate and uphold the Black community, as well as acknowledges the challenges Black people face in reaching their full potential.
Black excellence in the Black community isn't just, the Obamas. It's so much more than that, and it's everyday folks who, despite the racism they face at work, despite the racism they face on public transit, in the school system, in the healthcare system, what have you, they're still getting up every day, working hard, loving their families, celebrating, being joyous, contributing. That is Black excellence.
Williams says while the movement is geared towards the Black community, it wants to spark a wider conversation about anti-racism, unity, and understanding among ethnic groups. That's why she's been working closely with the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs.
When groups that have been targeted for hate, that feel that they cannot be safe, and when they can see that the groups can come together, work together, collaborate, work for a common target, work to promote education against racism, it's wonderful.
In a statement, the province says education is a powerful tool to achieve racial equity and equality, but we understand more work needs to be done to ensure an anti-racism lens is core in BC's education system.
Change comes slowly, but it's great that they've acknowledged it. Hopefully it's going to make a great impact.
Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
The Canucks have unveiled their 2022 Lunar New Year jersey.
It's inspiring to imagine an orca transforming into a tiger, symbolizing that we can become anything we want to be, including a better neighbor and ally for each other.
Designed by artist Trevor Lai, the jersey will be worn by the team in warm-ups during the Lunar New Year celebration later this season. Partial proceeds from the sales of the jerseys will be donated to Eliminate Hate. That's a community organization that advocates for racial equity and inclusivity for all Asian Canadians. Calls for his resignation after attending a party during a lockdown. The pressures facing the UK's PM Boris Johnson next. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. Well, the post-holiday period can feel a bit glum, even in a normal year. And with the new wave of COVID-19, things may seem darker than ever. So some communities have thought to keep the holiday lights shining a little longer. Have a look.
Did you notice they left the Cabot Tower Star Shiner?
I did. I can actually see it from my house. When I wake up in the morning, it's the first light I see is that star.
Normally, the star would be off all Christmas Day, but we've got a lot of comments from people asking if we can keep the star on a little bit longer, much as we did during the start of the pandemic. I guess they see it as kind of a symbol of hope, but also of light, and kind of the darkest time of the year. Based on that and the input that we've gotten from people online, we've decided that we're going to leave it on for at least until the end of January. It makes people feel happy because it is such a bright symbol. You can see us from so far in the city.
Well, last year we started the lighted walk here at Manuel's River. It's something that we wanted to do for a while, but as we drew into Christmas and the new year, things took a really sad turn with COVID, and of course we are where we are now with it, and it's affecting so many people. And we thought this year, instead of taking the lights down, that we would extend them for a week or so. Since then, we have chatted as a council and have agreed that these lights here will now stay on not only through this week, but will actually be extended through February 20th.
How did you guys enjoy the lighted walk this evening?
It's really cool.
During COVID, it's nice to have the lights on.
Yeah.
Yeah. They enjoy it.
A little bit extra
This was
joy.
her idea to come tonight, hey?
Some other seasonal light displays will be brightening up our lives a little while longer. Here in St. John's, the Bowering Park Festival of Music and Lights was scheduled to go dark on January 6th. Instead, this and other city light displays are staying lit until January 31st.
I think it's a sign of encouragement to dig deep and keep going and do what we can to keep each other safe, for sure.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is keeping his distance from Quebec's plan to tax people who don't get vaccinated against COVID-19, but he isn't dismissing it. Critics of the plan say it's unconstitutional, but as Travis Dunrodge reports, the Prime Minister says he needs to see more details.
For people who continue to hesitate or to choose not to get vaccinated, they are losing privileges to
And the Prime Minister is not ruling out an idea floated by Quebec's Premier, taxing those that haven't gotten the shot.
This Quebec proposal is something that obviously everyone is paying attention to right now, but there are still many details to know. And the details will be important in how this works.
While the specifics are worked out, even the idea of a tax for the unvaxxed is causing concern.
I think punitive and intended to be a way to compel people to be vaccinated. We've been concerned and sort of raising alarms throughout the pandemic about Quebec's approach.
It's ethically problematic. I mean, what would make it more ethical is if the vaccines were an absolute firewall.
But while breakthrough infections among the fully vaccinated are ending up in hospital, the unvaccinated are at far greater risk. In Quebec, about 85% of its population has at least one shot, but the threat of financial penalties may not be enough to sway those that are still hesitant.
Let's say if he were to tax us $250 a month or every 2 months, it might sound crazy, but I would rather pay that money than put something in my body that I'm unsure of.
There are also legal questions that are yet to be answered.
I think the first one is whether it would violate the charter. And if a province were to enact a vaccine mandate, that would immediately trigger Section 7 of the Charter, which protects the right to life, liberty, and security of the person.
So far, no province has indicated taking a similar approach.
They're free to look into that. We're not doing that here.
We're taking a different approach. We aren't going down that road. We're going to take a different approach.
That's Travis Dunrodge reporting from Ottawa tonight. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is trying to blunt the tide over public anger over an ongoing scandal. Today, he admitted that he did attend a garden party last May during the country's first COVID-19 lockdown, while his government had millions of Britons on lockdown themselves. Margaret Evans looks at Johnson's apology and the growing calls for his resignation.
Did you lie about the parties, Prime Minister? He's been called the Teflon leader, repeatedly sloughing off gaffe and scandal alike. It is the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's rule now in its final days.
Mr. Speaker, I want to apologise.
This was today's apology for attending a bring-your-own-booze party in his back garden in May 2020, when the British people were in full lockdown, allowed to meet just one person outside their own household. Dozens are reported to have been there.
I thought it was a work event, and Mr. Speaker, I regret very much that we did not do things differently that evening.
That is surely an understatement. Johnson is already on the ropes after revelations last month about other Downing Street parties breaching lockdown rules in 2020. The sense of public outrage is high, especially amongst those who followed government guidelines while loved ones died alone.
They were laughing at us while we were breaking, our families were breaking, this home were breaking, and they were bringing their own booze to a party.
Critics say today's apology amounts to an admission that Johnson misled Parliament.
It's been preceded by a series of denials that really can only be seen as amounting to outright lies that no parties had taken place at all.
Opposition parties want blood.
His defence that he didn't realise he was at a party. It is so ridiculous that it's actually offensive to the British public. Is he now going to do the decent thing and resign?
Opinion polls suggest a majority of Britons think he should, but it's not up to them. His own parliamentary Conservative Party would have to agree to oust him. And tonight, they'll be weighing Johnson's apology against public anger, whether it's been enough to allow him to fight another day. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
A civil sexual assault case against Prince Andrew will go ahead. A New York judge has rejected the prince's attempt to have it dismissed. Chris Reyes looks at the impacts.
Prince Andrew could be headed to court for trial in the U.S., a first for any member of the British royal family.
For a senior member of the royal family to be facing a potential full-blown trial in America around sexual abuse allegations, which of course Andrew denies, is really quite a sort of major unsettling thing.
A New York judge has ruled that Prince Andrew is not protected by a 2009 settlement made by Virginia Giuffre and Jeffrey Epstein. Giuffre was one of Epstein's many accusers, claiming years of sexual abuse.
He said that because Prince Andrew's interpretation is not the only interpretation available, then the suit has to go forward and it has to go to trial so that we can flesh out those issues more fully.
Giuffre claims she was forced to have sex with Prince Andrew when she was 17, while working for Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, who was convicted of sex abuse crimes involving minors 2 weeks ago. In a statement, Giuffre's lawyers said the ruling is another step in her heroic and determined pursuit of justice as a survivor of sex trafficking.
It's a pretty sweet victory for the survivors who have assumed they don't have the power to be able to take down the really powerful men that put them in these positions.
Prince Andrew has repeatedly denied allegations, but stepped back from royal duties in 2019. Buckingham Palace has refused to comment on the matter.
I don't think there will be a public show of solidarity from the rest of the royal family. This is, the feeling is this is Andrew's mess that he needs to sort out.
What are the chances that Prince Andrew will have to come to the U.S. to face the court in this case?
I mean, I think the chances are quite high. If this goes to trial, he will be ordered by a court to come and testify.
Because Prince Andrew's case is a civil lawsuit, there is still time to settle out of court. If that doesn't happen, the trial could begin in the fall. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
CBC News has found that breast implant makers shared thousands of old reports of suspected injuries and complications with Health Canada as part of a massive data dump. Some date back to the early 2000s, but weren't reported to Canadian authorities until 2 decades later. CBC's senior data journalist Valerie Ouellette has the story.
So we looked back at the Health Canada medical device incident data, and we found a couple of new things.
Breast implant cancer survivor Terry McGregor did not expect to see this.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh. That's not at all what health. How did we go from 12 reports the year I was diagnosed to 7,000 reports in 2019?
That was also our question. Why has Health Canada received 10 times more reports related to breast implants in 2019 than the previous year? We dug into the data and found old reports received by breast implant makers Allergan and Johnson & Johnson affiliate Mentor over the past 2 decades, but only disclosed in 2019.
I don't think this data has anything in it that shows that patients are at increased risk with the current breast implants. What I think is more concerning is that the system is broken.
Canada's federal regulations say it's mandatory for manufacturers to report all deaths, serious injuries, and complications involving a medical product to Health Canada within 10 to 30 days. But it leaves it up to manufacturers to decide if an incident is reportable or not.
It's a bit of a violation of trust. I mean, I use those devices with the expectation that the sort of processes that are in place are going to be followed. So if I report a ruptured implant to a manufacturer, I would expect that manufacturer would report that to Health Canada. So the fact that that has not been done for 19 years in this case is really concerning. And I think a lot of surgeons would want an explanation for that.
As does this patient advocate. CBC News found her medical device report in the data dump 4 years after it was submitted to Allergan.
The reports were there. And the manufacturers kept them from our government. I have cost our government a lot of medical resources to save my life. How dare they?
Health Canada told CBC News this new data has been key in helping it reevaluate risks associated with breast implants. It's planning to publish a new update in coming months. As for manufacturers, Allergan declined to comment, but Johnson & Johnson affiliate Mentor has said it has been and remains transparent and fully compliant with federal regulations. Valerie Ouellette, CBC News, Toronto.
Here was a discovery that shook the nation and reverberated around the world. The discovery in Kamloops of what are considered unmarked graves of children. So what happens now? The CBC returns there next.
Native people in British Columbia are claiming victory tonight in an important land claims ruling. BC's highest court has ruled they have some rights to a giant area of land in the northern part of the province. The land covers an area of more than 50,000 square kilometers, about the size of Nova Scotia. More now from the CBC's Karen Webb.
The Gitxsan and Wet'suwet'en won some and lost some.
What we have been successful in doing is taking that whole extinguishment notion and kicking it right out the door. So that
Herb George referred to the ruling of the lower court that said BC's entry into Confederation extinguished Aboriginal rights and the rights of his people. What they won at the Court of Appeal is a declaration that says exactly the opposite, that Aboriginal rights were not all extinguished before 1871. What they didn't win was an outright declaration that they own this land in northern British Columbia, land they say they neither sold nor gave up in treaties. Earl Muldoe, the hereditary chief whose Gitxsan name of Delgamuuk has been given to the case, says that even though a partial victory, it's still an important one.
If you take a bucket of water out of the Skeena River, the Skeena keeps on flowing. Our rights still flow, and they will flow forever.
The judges also ruled that although the Gitxsan and Wet'suwet'en don't own the land, they do have some rights to it, and those should be negotiated with the province. The provincial minister is pleased.
If we all take that direction, I think we can all claim a victory, and that's very much, I hope, the direction we will take.
But the Business Council of BC says it's worried. The court ruled that leases for resources such as timber and minerals could also be renegotiated to take into account Aboriginal rights.
That gives us some cause for initial concern because we're afraid of having to go acre by acre in determining what use can be made of land when there are disputes.
Then there were the hunting and fishing cases, the questions of just how to define Aboriginal rights. The court ruled that there is an Aboriginal right to hunt, but it also ruled there is no Aboriginal right to sell fish. Chief Ken Malloway is a relative of one woman who is now convicted of selling fish illegally.
I feel confident that eventually, when we do get this to the Supreme Court of Canada, I feel very confident that we will get the decision that we're after, that we will triumph after all.
A decision about whether to appeal to the Supreme Court of Canada must be made by the end of October. Karen Webb, CBC News, Vancouver.
Here are some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Paramedics and emergency dispatchers in BC responded to more calls for overdoses last year than ever before. BC Emergency Health Services said it had an average of 91 calls a day. That's a 31% increase over the year before. Surrey, in particular, saw a nearly 50% increase in calls. A man who allegedly defaced Vancouver's Komogata Maru Memorial in Cole Harbour has been charged with one count of mischief. There is now an arrest warrant out for 39-year-old Yuniar Kernaiwin, and it's not the first time the memorial has been vandalized.
Because we're not seeing anything concerning at all in terms of side effect profile or adverse events.
Still, the numbers are low in BC when it comes to vaccines for kids 5 to 11. Nearly half haven't even been registered yet. Medical professionals say it's tough tackling parental concerns about children and virus protection. Well, it's been a difficult few months for the Tecumloops Tishkwetmik First Nation and Kamloops. They made headlines around the world last year when they identified what are now widely assumed to be the graves of children at the site of a former residential school. Tomorrow night, the Fifth Estate looks at how people there are grappling with what they've already been through and what's to come. Here is Gillian Finlay with an excerpt from The Reckoning.
Oh, Creator, grandfathers and grandmothers, I pray that you will help all of the little ones that are down here. I pray that you'll help them find the peace that they need so that they'll be able to travel back home.
Every Friday afternoon, the apple orchard beside the former Kamloops Indian Residential School comes alive with the sound of drumming and singing. A procession of remembrance for the more than 200 former students they believe are buried here.
We have to keep praying to them. We have to keep letting them know that they are not forgotten, that they will never be forgotten. I know that they're there. Lots of other people know they're there. But until they are excavated, there'll always be those people that will say, well, maybe they're not.
We do get those folks that believe we're lying, that believe we're doing this for money, that, you know, we're just manipulators, I guess would be a word to use. I've even had emails that said that they were probably just brats anyway. I'm like, these are people that I don't understand how they can feel that way towards any other human being.
I have no doubt that there are burials there. Ground penetrating radar is the scientific approach, but we really need to hold Indigenous knowledge systems, oral tellings, to an equal space. A number of the anomalies are smaller. They are shallower, which is indicative of a child's burial. But to know what type of remains they are, whether they're adult, child, ancestral, you wouldn't know until you excavated.
And that presented the Kamloops Nation with a dilemma.
For our people, it's really bad to exhume anyone. You know, their final resting place is actually sacred ground, in every sense of the word. They must be left alone. We do have elders who do want those children to stay there, without a doubt. But our committee has discussed it, and they have said that they should be exhumed.
I went around the table asking all of the family heads what they felt should happen, and every one of the representatives said those little ones should be sent home, because that's what we would want.
Former Kamloops Chief Manny Jules heads the committee that made the decision to exhume.
Our number one job is to make sure that they have a safe return home with all of the honor and respect that they didn't receive in life, that they're given in their afterlife.
But identifying remains takes DNA analysis. Determining how someone died requires even more work.
It's a very slow process. In order to identify the remains, it really depends on how well preserved they are or not. So it's questionable whether DNA analysis can be done. Forensically, looking at trauma, same thing. It really depends on how well preserved the bones are. And so I don't think you really know until you begin excavating what you're going to find.
We need answers. The families need answers, communities need answers, the world needs answers.
What's the question that you want answered?
The biggest thing is it's looked at as a crime scene with that many children, potential children that are in unmarked graves. So it's finding those answers, and we know that we can't find those answers alone.
The community has already approached the United Nations for help. There are international protocols for excavating unmarked graves, and they feel the pressure to get this right. Julian Finley, CBC News on the Tk'emlúps-te-Secwépemc First Nation.
You can catch the full documentary, The Reckoning, tomorrow night on the Fifth Estate. That's at 9 p.m. on CBC Television and streaming anytime on CBC Gem. And support for anyone affected by residential schools is available 24 hours a day through a national crisis line. The number is 1-866-925-4419. Well, a household battle of the ages. A trio of cats have claimed a much-coveted holiday purchase. Why they're not budging from the blender box, coming up. At 6:43, a live look tonight at Revelstoke, where a mix of snow and rain is hitting the region. Just straight up rain for the south coast, though. Will it come to an end? That's the answer that we're looking for from Johanna next.
When your backyard is burning, is anywhere safe? I'm Adrienne Lamb, the host of a new podcast, World on Fire. Join us on the front lines of wildfires burning around the world. Find it wherever you get your podcasts.
Okay, it's a standoff that has lasted nearly a month with house cats just outside of Victoria, and the hostage situation shows no resolution in sight. At the center of it, a Vitamix held captive by not one, but three cats. It came into the home of Jessica and Nikki Gerson-Neves in Langford on December 16th and remains under siege. So far, no one is backing down. Now, the feline standoff is documented daily on Facebook to the delight of thousands.
There was a lady who said, I'm a COVID nurse in an ICU ward, and every day before I get out of the car to go into work, I read the latest post and I laugh.
And so, you know, it's not big and consequential. It's not traditionally newsworthy.
It's not high stakes,
but it's making people happy, and that's not nothing.
The home now has a few decoy boxes sent by the Vitamix company aimed at wrangling the blender away from the trio of cats. Now, I have to ask Johanna Wagstaffe, as a dog owner, there's sort of a debate going on social media right now because all the dog owners are saying, well, just kick them off the box, take the box away.
I know. Dog owners do not get this, and I am one of them, but I am also here for the story, Anita, and I think we need to stay on top of this developing story every night. We all need this. But yes, a dog owner, we just don't understand. I was watching this story and I was thinking, I get up to go to the washroom and my dog's like, can I come with you? Like a Vitabox box does not stop him. So yes, we will keep you posted diligently on the story, as we will with the weather. Let me take you through the current temperatures across the country tonight. Current temperatures show we've got that Arctic air mass still in place across the country. It has lifted up from British Columbia, of course, with the advance of our upstream river, and shifted eastward. One night and one night only, Toronto felt minus 31 wind chills a couple of nights ago, and now it's moved off central Quebec and parts of Atlantic Canada. It is slowly retreating, though. As I mentioned earlier, we've got one more hit of moisture in the next couple of hours, moving back in around midnight to 4 a.m. We'll see another general 10 to 20 millimeters. So this is on top of the 100 millimeters we've seen. Rainfall warnings have ended, except for the west side of Vancouver Island, and you can see another 40 to 60 millimeters expected inland areas up to Fino. Temperatures also still warm, but coming down slightly. That cold front is going to move across the province through the day tomorrow. Kelowna, look for some good sunshine. I know you've seen some good downpours in the past couple of days as well. Cranbrook, sunny skies for you as well. Prince Rupert, sunshine to start, but look for a stray shower in the afternoon. And Prince George all the way up to Fort St. John, I think you'll see some good sunshine in the afternoon. All of these temperatures still above seasonal, even though you've come down a little bit from the highs you were at yesterday. We're still well above seasonal across the south coast, based on our last 30-year average anyway. Look at those blues, or purples, I should say, as I take you through the forecast. Still looking to get some good snow through the Prince George region before you get that afternoon sun. And there's that morning moisture across the south coast. Look at it quickly disappear, though. You see that break in the forecast clouds. We'll get some sunny breaks in towards the afternoon. And we've got a quiet period after that, which I think most of us will definitely take. So 10 tomorrow, watch for that afternoon sunshine. We still need those warm temperatures to melt that snowpack across the south coast. I say need. We definitely don't need it melted, but it is hard, thick ice some places, so it'll be nice to see the slippery conditions go away. And with those warm temperatures needed through the weekend into early next week, by the weekend, I think we'll have lost that snowpack through Metro Vancouver and Fraser Valley. A lot of us will be glad about that.
I think so, for sure. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Black nurses in Canada report experiencing microaggressions and even outright racism as they care for some patients. The CBC's Chloe Rinaldi has more on the effort to support them and the creation of the Canadian Black Nurses Alliance.
Nursing student Schneiderly Bennett says she's often the only Black person on her floor. And when caring for patients, she sometimes has to brush off blatant racism.
When some other people will be like, oh, I prefer a white nurse, it's hurt because I feel like I am as much competent as her.
She says her priority is caring for her patients, but hearing those types of comments can make her feel isolated.
I feel like my color shouldn't be a problem. Like, we are here for your health, and that's it. We're not here for my color stuff.
ICU nurse Jennifer Philogène says Bennett isn't alone. She says Black people are also underrepresented at higher levels in the health network.
Whenever we get a higher position in the hierarchy of the healthcare system, we feel that we have to show less and less our Black traits. We have to feel that we show more of the Quebecer traits to feel accepted by our colleagues.
So in an effort to make Quebec's healthcare system more inclusive, she's leading the Canadian Black Nurses Alliance in the province.
CBNA is there to provide support, is there to provide resources, but we're also there to ensure that there's policies and some rules against those microaggressions.
The group has partnered with a number of Quebec universities to help educate and sensitize people to the experiences felt by Black healthcare professionals, as well as increase Black representation at all levels.
I think as nurses and in the healthcare system, we have a duty to represent the population we serve. So it doesn't make sense if some groups are not represented in the healthcare system, because it does a disservice to the people, the patients that we're caring for.
Daniel says it's also important so that staff feel safe and listened to.
I think the nursing leadership or healthcare leadership does need to have representation so nurses can feel comfortable going to the superiors about complaints, about issues concerning the environments that they're coping with.
The Canadian Black Nurses Alliance also hopes to create the system of accountability, where nurses can report instances of racism or discrimination. Chloe Rinaldi, CBC News, Montreal.
Would it drive on land? No, it's not a Dr. Seuss poem. Can fish pilot a car? We'll tell you after the break.
Lauren Julian has been drawn to painting most of his life.
I believe you have to be somewhat courageous to pursue writing or painting or any kind of art form, because not a lot of people want to go that route.
He found a mentor in Mi'kmaq artist Gerald Glode, who urged him to just jump right in. He's also inspired by Indigenous painter Copper Thunderbird. Julian calls his own work native abstract, and he draws from deep water.
That painting there, that was of a bear that I did, and it's in a circle. That circle could represent like another dimension, maybe a spirit dimension, or it could also represent a medicine wheel, and it also could represent the four directions, north, east, south, and west. And traditionally too, bears were known for medicine. And I feel like there's healing properties too.
The Rug Hooking Guild of Nova Scotia commissioned this piece.
But it represents a family. You got the mother and father, you got the children, you got the four colors of man. And then also in a lot of the Mi'kmaq work, we have a lot of what you call a double curve design.
He wants people to feel his work.
I like to think of my art too as color therapy. I know different colors may have different meaning to me, but I think using a lot of bright, vivid colors also lifts people's spirits at the same time.
This work in progress is inspired by an older couple who have fallen out with their children. He draws on the sorrow.
Most of my work has some sort of meaning or some kind of a little bit of a story to it, but at the same time I won't give it all away. Like there's maybe a couple other things in there, there's other meanings in there, but I keep that to myself. I don't want to give everything away.
He's in demand now for paintings and public art.
I think it's healing for not just for First Nations people, but I think it's also healing for a lot of non-Native people as well.
The final brushstrokes are always the same, the name given to him by an elder 30 years ago, the warrior on the hill. John Tatry, CBC News, Millbrook.
This next story may seem like something out of a SpongeBob SquarePants cartoon, but this is a legitimate research experiment. Israeli scientists have taught 6 goldfish to drive an aquarium on wheels. It's an attempt to understand the extent of their navigational skills and their cognitive capabilities. Take a look.
Here we see a fish inside the fish-operated vehicle. And with this vehicle, the fish gets to navigate on land, a place where fish usually don't go, and it gets to solve a navigational task, while at the same time it learns both how to operate this vehicle and also it learns what their task is and how to solve it the most efficient way. Surprisingly, it doesn't take the fish a long time to learn how to drive the vehicle. They're very confused at first, they don't know what's going on, but they're very quick to realize that there's a correlation between their movement and the movement of the machine that they're in. So it's something that they learn quite quickly.
This is a preliminary study. We used 6 fish, and they were all able to learn the task to some extent. There were very good fish that were doing excellent, and there were mediocre fish that were showed controlling of the vehicle, but were less proficient in driving it.
So the suggestion is that goldfish can learn to navigate completely unfamiliar environments, not just specific ones like a coral reef. Soon they'll be all around us, driving right here down Georgia Street, downtown Vancouver. Okay, that's it for CBC Vancouver News tonight. Thanks for being with us.